In this position, Garry Kasparov sacrifices his queen to Vladimir Kramnik. I dug up a fascinating chess archive for you, guys. A brilliant game played between Garry Kasparov with the black pieces and Vladimir Kramnik. The game was played in Great Britain, so we're heading to London and watching it. Vladimir Borisovich starts with pawn to d4, and Garry Kasparov answers with knight to f6. This is, by the way, an archive game from 1994, when these two men were both in their prime. One was already starting to decline a little, while the other was just beginning his explosive career. Pawn to c4, pawn to g6, knight to c3, bishop to g7. This is the king's Indian defense. With knight to c3, Vladimir Borisovich shows that he is going for the main line of this defense. Usually white attacks on the queenside, while black attacks on the kingside. But here we're about to see a fascinating queen sacrifice from Garry Kasparov. Castling and bishop to e2. Not wanting to waste time, Garry plays pawn to e5, pushing his central pawn forward. At first glance, it looks like he is sacrificing the pawn on e5, because it can simply be captured. The knight takes e5, but that's not what happens. After queen to d1 and bishop to d1, there is a standard very strong move. Knight takes e4, opening the bishop's line and attacking the knight. If you take this knight on e4, we simply take the knight on e5. So after pawn to e5, Vladimir Borisovich pushes the pawn forward again, this time to d5. He doesn't expect the position to turn into such a massive brawl. And Kasparov plays again, not again, but once more. Bishop to g5, and with pawn to a6, Garry kicks away this annoying bishop, which is creating an unpleasant pin on the knight. But the bishop doesn't simply retreat. Of course, white could also play pawn to g5 here, kicking the bishop away so it doesn't come back. But Garry chooses a different path and develops his knight to a6. Castling bishop to d7. The idea is to follow up with something like pawn to c6 and pawn to b5. But after knight to d2 and knight to c5, Garry plays bishop to b3, allowing Kasparov to unleash a fascinating, completely insane combination involving the capture of the pawn on e4. The computer marks this move as an inaccuracy, but doesn't give black any terrible evaluation. Vladimir Borisovich happily gobbles up this delicious pawn like a sweet little cheater on chess. Calm. Knight takes c3, giving check, and the queen cannot retreat to c1, because if the queen goes to c1, then everything you fought for comes crashing down. The king retreats and the queen gets taken. So after the capture on c3, the queen must retreat to e1, just like in the game. And the rook captures the bishop on d8. So what do we have after all this? Just two pieces, a bishop and a knight, in exchange for the queen. But the party is only getting started. If you're watching, don't forget to smash that like button and check your subscription, because here we have brilliant chess analysis you won't see anywhere else. Rook to c1. This is a blunder from Vladimir Borisovich. How does that happen? Volodya, this isn't some cheater you're trying to scare. Garry captures on a2, rook to a1, and knight to b4, retreating. The knight threatens a fork on c2, and with bishop to d1, Kramnik stops this nasty idea from Kasparov. Pawn to e4 opens the diagonal for the big bishop on a1, rook to b1, another little maneuver, and rook to e8. The pawn needs to be defended. Kasparov doesn't have a queen, or rather Kramnik has the queen while Kasparov has two pieces. And despite that, the evaluation favors black by around -2. A slight chill in the air. Queen to a3. Kramnik brings his queen over, hoping to create some kind of semi-legal counterplay. Pawn to f5, the pawn needs protection. Kasparov is full of enthusiasm, ready to turn this game around and punish his future nemesis. Rook to f4, queen to f8, with the idea of pushing the pawn to f3. Rook to a8. Kasparov throws all his pieces into the attack, preparing the final breakthrough straight into Vladimir Borisovich's face. King to g2. The white position is getting worse, but the knight is slowly creeping toward the weak d3 square. Rook to g1. Vladimir Borisovich tries to escape with his king to e2, somewhere life might be a little easier. But then comes pawn to f4, after which Kramnik makes an unconventional decision, namely to give his queen back. A few moves later, he will actually return the queen. Pawn to h5, trying to open things up, at least somehow open this file so he doesn't get completely destroyed. But it's already too late. He's already getting destroyed. Rook to f1 protects the pawn on f2, rook to h4, rook to h1 offers a trade, Rook to f4 once again attacks the pawn on f2. Rook to f1 and rook to f8 attack the pawn on f2. Give me your pawns. No, I'm not giving it to you. Let it go to f3. And I won't take it, and I won't let you take it either. Rook to h4 eventually appears in the game. If you capture here, this follows, and after the knight recaptures. Rook to h3, bishop to f3, knight to f4, king to g1, and bishop to e5. Black gets a winning position. But in the game, after the pawn is captured on e4, knight to e4 follows. Carolina retreats to g1 and the knight jumps to d3, right into her face. Pawn to e5. Kramnik makes another mistake, after which comes knight to e5, rook to c1, and rook to h3. It is precisely in this position that, a few moves later, Vladimir Borisovich tries to give his queen back in exchange for several pieces, but unfortunately, he runs into serious trouble. Knight to h3 gives check, the king goes here, rook to f1, and after king to f1 comes pawn to g3, king to g2, and knight to f4. It is time to resign because there is a forced mate in 7. Retreating to g1 is bad because of mate. Simply rook to e1. If the king retreats to f1, then comes pawn to d2, the king moves here, rook to h3, preparing rook to h1 with checkmate. Knight to e5 blocks the bishop's diagonal. The bishop takes anyway, bishop to e2, bishop to d4, the king moves here, and now a brand new queen appears on the board. The king escapes here, and bishop to e3 delivers mate in a few moves. So there you have it, guys. Click on the end screen, leave a comment supporting your favorite chess player, and check out the channel and playlists featuring your favorite chess players. See you next time. Subscribe.